I'm a legislator, and I'm in Congress every day trying to push laws that I think reflect not only common sense pragmatism, fiscal conservatism. It's fiscally conservative thing to do to invest in preschool for every child, because every dollar invested in that produces about $9 in return for the growth of our economy. But I want to really get to the point that you're talking about, which is the bigger question for me is not necessarily in your job every day, whatever you go on and do, whether it's you're working as a software engineer, you're working as a clerk for a judge, when you're working as a legislature in a county. Really the truth is we as Americans, we really understand our history. That history I told you about, it's not what again is thrust upon us by many history books, that we are where we are because of some great man theory of history, that these great men descended from Mount Olympus, the Kennedys and the Kings and the Lincolns and the Washingtons, and they led us to freedom and to a better society. That's just not true. The story of America is ordinary Americans like us who did extraordinary commitments on that spirit of our country, who found ways that despite the wretchedness that they encountered, despite the hate and the bigotry and the inequality, they still fought for that spirit. And because of them, they unleashed tidal waves of love. I'm here right now. When I was going back to do research for this book, I called up the people that helped me and my family before I was even conscious. When I was a kid, when I was 4 months old, my parents integrated a town, and they had to get private lawyers and the Fair Housing Council involved in this big, literally turned out to be a fist fight at one point in a real estate agent's office at the time of a closing. All these people that had to get us into office, and I found out I searched out and found Lee Porter, the head of the Fair Housing Council in the 60s. Turns out she's still head of the New Jersey Fair Housing Council today. She turns 90 this year. And I'm like, I see this woman, I'm virtually on my knees thanking her. Nobody knows her name here, but she's this unbelievable agent, not just of righteous policy, but boy, is she an agent of love. I call up the lawyers. I find a lawyer who's now 84 years old, who was one of the people that get the case file of my family, volunteer guy. I said, why did you do what you did? And he goes, well, I decided to do what I did on a Monday. And I said, back in 1960, whatever. And I'm like, how do you remember it was a Monday? He goes, well, I remember it was a Monday. When my partner and I first thought we would need to go to Alabama, then we realized we couldn't afford to. And we decided to do the best we could with what we had where we were, and took cases from the Fair Housing Council. I go, well, wait, what's going on? And he says, well, it was a Monday because the Sunday before was Bloody Sunday, where we watched on TV a bunch of people on the Edmund Pettus Bridge getting beaten by Alabama state troopers, gassed. And so think about that love chain right there. I can maybe name 10 people. I can't name 10 people who marched on that bridge, but their actions set up a chain reaction of love that instantly changed the hearts of lawyers in New Jersey, who then instantly helped change the destiny of hundreds of families. I told the guy, I am a United States Senator right now because of what you did back then. Because but for his intervention, but for that chain reaction of love. And so the question you have to answer yourself is if every day I have that power, I tell people all the time, I tweet this out all the time, I say that the biggest thing we can do in any day is often always a small act of kindness, decency, or love. And so we have a choice to make every single day of our life. Every single day is to accept conditions as they are or take responsibility for changing them. Look, I'll give you this is the last thing I'll say, which is that I was broken. If you are a person that seeks tolerance, it's a much easier way to go in life. If you are a lover, remember, patriotism means love of country. I believe to love your country, it necessitates loving your country, women and men. You may not always agree with them, you may not like them, but you've got to love them. And so if you're a lover, it is hard. You will get your heart broken. You will get your feelings hurt. There'll be days when you could barely get out of bed and go out into the world and do another day of loving. And I'll never forget one of the hardest moments of my life was when I witnessed a boy dying from gunshot wounds. I lost morality, and it was 4 years until the next one. It was the middle of that, 2 years in between both a loss and an eventual victory. And it was the most gruesome thing. It almost made me hate movies when you see people getting shot, because they just almost glorify it. It is one of the most gruesome, blood pouring out, foaming blood coming from his mouth, me desperately trying to stop the bleeding and putting my hand in his mouth trying to clip. It was gruesome. I was in shock. By the time it finished, the police director of Newark still today, who was there at that time, said he said you were shaking. I was so distraught by this, and I was so angry at America. I was so angry that we are a country that has so many kids being put in boxes, and the world doesn't even seem to slow down. Doesn't even seem to take notice of poor minority children getting murdered at rates that are outrageous and unconscionable. And I was full of hate and anger and bitterness and just being contorted inside, wanting to give up. Why was I fighting this battle and no one seemed to care? And I'll never forget that the morning that I started getting a lifeline out of this funk that I was in, where I wasn't making a choice, where I was almost ready to surrender to cynicism. And cynicism is a refuge for cowards, in my opinion. And so when I was coming out of my buildings, I was living in Brick Towers, walked through that lobby where Miss Jones's son was dead. I walk into the lobby, and there's Miss Jones across the courtyard, and I am just in pain. Her back is to me, and I'll never forget what she did. She turns around, she sees me, and then she did what she did I told you before. She just opens her arm. But at this point, it wasn't what I wanted to avoid, it was what I desperately wanted. And I remember scurrying over to her arms like a little kid. I'm 6'3", she's 5 feet and a smidgen, and she puts her arms around me like a little boy. I just held her and started crying on her shoulder, just so angry, tears of anger, tears of hurt, tears of sadness. And she just kept rubbing my back over and over again, saying 2 words is which I leave you with. And they're 2 words I think about. I thought about when I eventually became mayor, good days, bad days. I would say them to myself. I think about them now, and I'm pounding my head at times against implacable walls of resistance in the Senate. And I just say these words. And they're words that give me encouragement every single day that I think about them, to never stop. Don't let this world change you. You insist on changing this world. And even if it's sometimes screaming darkness, be one of those people that lights a candle of love. And the 2 words she said as she was rubbing my back over and over again, as I cried on her shoulders, she just kept saying the 2 words, stay faithful, stay faithful, stay faithful. I hope you stay faithful as being a lover.